Hello everyone, this is Christine, and today we are going to be exploring the Z code editor. And what is Z? So it is another agentic coding editor, and it's written in Rust, which means memory and thread safety is important. And you also open source, so that's really cool. So you can actually download it and play around with it separately. It comes with a personal, sort of a free plan. There's Pro and there's Enterprise, and with Pro, it actually gives you a 14-day free trial with a handful of prompts that you can try it out with. All right, this is what it looks like. So just like any kind of other daily workflow, you can actually go in here and play with different things. You've got this place where you can actually type in, you can choose different types of so-called profiles. For example, if you just want to chat with your model, ask questions that are unrelated to the code, you would probably pick the minimal. If you want to ask or chat with your code base, but don't have it make any changes, you can use the ask profile, or you can use the write profile. You're able also to choose different types of models. So that kind of just similar to some of the other agentic coding tools, you can actually go through the Z service. You can bring your own API keys. You can also, if you've got something like Ollama where you're running local models or LM Studio, you can bring them in here as well. So pretty good series there, and you are able to a bunch of different things, but sometimes the best way to actually play around with this is to actually bring in and work on something. So that's what we're going to do. So a couple of months ago, I was reminded that I had created a Sudoku game that apparently someone's been playing every day. And I decided, why not bring this down, and potentially as part of exploring Z, we are going to create, say, an Astro version of it. And that might actually put us in the state where we might actually improve it again in the future. So this is what the game looks like. It's your standard Sudoku app. Doesn't have any login or anything else like that. So that's what we're going to do. We are going to port that using Z. Just in case you're wondering how you would do that, first of all, from this artifact, we downloaded it as an HTML. And then what I did is just I made it available in here. So this is basically the HTML running right here. And just to completely explore some of the things down here inside of the Z editor, you can open terminal, run your commands in here. And let's run a command just to kind of get this running and see what it looks like locally. So as far as I know, Z doesn't have like a kind of like an HTML live editor. So you can make use of this package called npx live editor, and then it could then be running up here. Oops, I wasn't running it from the right directory. Let me try this again. And so now once I have it running, now here it is running locally. And this is what we're going to port over to Astro. Now, the key thing whenever you're working with any LLM coding agent, agentic, is you probably just want to go ahead and have it, number one, plan out what it's planning, what you want it to do. And then once you're kind of clear and you're sure that it's actually going in the right direction, then at that point you want to then let it loose and let it go to do the thing that you want to do, a little bit more comfort. The other thing is you just want to give it some guidelines so that it does the right thing. And this refers to things like potentially making sure that it is type checking and doing all the right things. Typically what you have in other coding editors is some kind of rules, and Z has the same thing. So with Z, you can actually go and specify some rules. And the way you would do that actually before we pop that up is you just Command Shift P will open up the palette, and then you can just say, I want to open the rules library, and then it's going to spin that up there. And so these are some sample rules that I kind of just like put together. This is usually empty. So I've added a few things, just like reply in a concise style. I want new projects with prettier support, some commands that I usually want it to run, usually for JavaScript projects, linter, formatter, some coding guidelines that generally just help it do the right thing very quickly. And then also some other things about like type checking and running linters. So this is how you could potentially just set up some of the rules that you want it to follow as it's building this. Okay, so let's get started with what we want to do. So I'm going to ask it to create a plan, but I'm just going to play around with a few different models in here. I'm going to pick one of the open source ones, and you'll see that in here it says tools unsupported. So some open source tools might have some tools that they can work with and some may not. So I want a tool that will allow me to read this Sudoku game.html and give me a plan for what it wants to do. So let me pick another one. Let's go for Quen 3. So you see, as I picked Quen 3, I was able to get some tools that allows it to do writes. And I'm just basically going to ask it to answer some question. And here I'm going to set the context as Sudoku game and then put in a message of what I want it to do. So dropping it here, I just wanted to create an implementation and port this over to Astro, making sure that it keeps the UI and functionality exactly the same. Go ahead and ask it to get going, and then it's going to do its thing and think through everything and give me a result. Scrolling through what it told me to do, it looked at the existing structure, it looked at the styles, and then it told me what it's planning to do, breaking it down into steps. And then it went ahead and gave me some code for what it planned to do and what it planned to set up. And just for kicks, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to switch my model up to Gemini 2.5. And in this case, I've actually set up my Gemini API key. So I'm going to just ask it, in this case, just to critique and revise the implementation plan. And one thing that you can actually do is you can reference like like previous threads, like the one that we were just in. Let's say we created a brand new thread. You could reference the previous thread and say something like @thread. Actually, that works better if I actually show you a brand new thread. So we just start a new thread. And then I can say, I want to reference the previous thread, which was this one. And then I also want to add this, just in case it's useful. And then I say, critique and revise the implementation plan. And here we're using Gemini preview, and we're also putting it in the ask profile, so it's not going to be adding or editing any tools. Let's see what Gemini thinks of this. It's always a good technique sometimes to get one LLM to critique the other one, and this is what Gemini had said. Thinks the plan is pretty solid. It's got some critique with operating just like from jumping from project setup to component creation. It's got some ideas about how to kind of like construct the game logic. Okay. I mean, I'm going to go with what Gemini has. And then what I'm now going to do is basically just ask Gemini to create like a checklist of what it's planning to do and then take a look at that. And I'm going to actually ask it to do it in a brand new project. So I want to create this all not in the same folder. So what I'm going to do now here is I'm going to add a folder to this workspace. So here is what we have is a workspace here. And I'll just create a new project called Sudoku Z, and that's what it's going to be added in here. So empty project, and this is what I hope to do all of the work that is part of this project. So I think this is a little long, so I'm just going to say shorten the implementation plan and write it out as a checklist. And I want you to place this in the, and I'm just going to add mention Sudoku Z folder under the guides directory. And now I'm going to switch it from ask to write because I wanted to do some of those tool calls related to writing, and then just have it go at it and make these changes. The other thing that you can notice up top, you see this kind of the 9K and one related to context. That's pretty useful to see as well. So again, I have it in write mode and it's created a plan here that I can look at. Yeah, I don't need that anymore. Let's just cancel. So here, oh, I had some 3 files in here. So let's see, we've got this checklist that it set up very quickly in here that I'm gonna go and walk through. Also, you'll see here, you're able to review the changes if you wanted to look at what it's changed, and then you can walk through, especially if there are multiple changes, and look at them one on one, or you can just like keep all of the changes. So here we've got our checklist. Let's go take a look at that again. And I'll close this for a second so I can look at the checklist. And now I'm going to walk through this checklist and just make sure that it's doing the right thing. One thing that I know that's pretty important is I actually wanted to kind of get the latest tailwind. And I do find that in general, it picks one of the older ones or has trouble with that. So I'm just going to change it and say, use context 7, just to get the right version. So use all right, so use context 7. And oh, what is context 7? This is a good question. So if you actually want to find out some of the things that Z also allows you to configure these different extensions, of which one of them are language servers, for example, if it needs to recognize Astro. It also allows you to add MCP servers. For example, context 7 allows you to get the latest documentation. This is installed. I also have another one installed, which is Puppeteer, which allows you to take screenshots and basically have Zed just use this tool to click around and do certain fun stuff. So back to where we were. So we were looking at the porting checklist in here. So I'm making some updates there. I like the plan, you know, analyze the HTML, and then it's going to design the state, make sure it uses the components. I just want to make sure that it's doing everything right. Assemble the ported components, refine it, testing and validation, end-to-end test, make sure that the UI matches. And this is actually pretty key because I've tried this out a couple of times, and there were times when Zed would I would get something that was unrelated to the original project if I did not have a plan in place. So I think that's pretty key. So I feel it's close and ready to kind of get going. All right, let me go ahead and save this, and I'm gonna bring back our agent mode in here. And now let me start another new thread here. And here I am now gonna pick a different model. I'm gonna pick Zed. I wanna pick the one provided by Zed, and I want to pick Claude Sonnet 4, one of the recent ones. And now I've got this checklist, and I'm probably just going to also bring up this one as well, add that to the context. And I'm now just going to say, go ahead. I want you to port over the Sudoku game according to the instructions in the checklist document and have it get going. All right. And here we can look at what it's doing. It's reading the file, it's understanding the structure, and time to get going. One other thing that tends to happen with this and with other coding tools, sometimes it's going to stop and interrupt you and say, is it okay to do this? In previous versions, I had actually said, just go ahead and keep going. So it's basically going to run and create all of the things that it needs to do. And it created a new folder called Technological Transit. And that's where it's put all the code in there. And as it's going along, it's creating the files. We can watch it for a little bit, and if something interesting comes up, I will kind of bring it back here and make sure you see the fun stuff. So here it is. I told it to kind of use context 7 to get the right tailwind, and you can see that it's running that MCP tool to get that information. I'd also kind of told it within the rules that I wanted all of the types in the types directory, and within the source folder, it looks like it's doing what I expected it to do. So it's churning and it's creating the files. I'm optimistic that it's actually doing the right thing based on just looking at the code. Just a quick check-in. It's created some of like the hooks and everything, and now it's creating the components that are going to be used to show the different pieces of the Sudoku board. All right, so this is actually a good stopping point. So as it was going on, it kind of hit this limit where it says there is a consecutive tool use limit reached, and so there's something called burn mode, which allows you to actually use larger context windows and make unlimited tool calls. So I would say I wanted to continue with burn mode. So hopefully it can continue to completion as well. And the other thing as it's kind of churning on is on the bottom left, it's got these different panels for Git, etc., collab. And somewhere in here is project diagnostics. So if there are any TypeScript errors or all, it'll show up in there. And I can tell you kind of from having tried this out with a couple of different projects, it makes a huge difference just by having some of those cursor rules, because then you don't have as many TypeScript errors. So for example, just making sure that it runs type check and it does the right things, or not even using any types when the project is running. That makes a big difference in some of the errors that don't show up. Yeah, I think it's close to getting done. It's creating that main page where every kind of jumps off from. All right, so now it's actually created the main page, and it's making sure that it's running properly. And I'm going to test it by just taking this link here and putting it in the browser, and let's see what we get. All right, so here's what it looks like in the browser. As you can see, not quite ideal. So I'm just going to let it know that I think it needs to be slightly better. So here's what I'm going to do. I am going to go back here to Z and tell it that the board is too small in the UI. Use Puppeteer to help debug and fix this. So I am telling it to use Puppeteer, which is a tool, and have it go ahead and try to resolve that. And let's hit go. Okay, so it's gonna be running this Puppeteer tool. And let's see what that looks like. All right, so basically we've got the agent has put up this debugging thing, and it's going ahead, and you can see it's just churning away and trying to resolve the issues as it goes along. And this is the part that I have fun watching, because it's basically doing the back and forth work that somebody else might have had to do. It's looking a little bit better. And it's gonna go through and check everything. And as well as it's going through, it's taking the screenshots, it's evaluating any of the errors, and it's also now checking to see what it looks like on mobile and if it looks pretty good there as well, and readjusting as necessary. And also making sure it's touch-friendly sizing. So doing a lot of work that you might have had to do if you were building it yourself, saving a lot of time. And it's doing a final screenshot to make sure everything looks good. And then another cool thing is it's basically going to be clicking around the different cells, just making sure that everything is, again, working really good, part of the plan that it needs to do. All right, so it looks like it went ahead and did all of the hard work and then basically kind of gave a summary. And looks like the project was a success. So this was an example just of using Zed and the Agentic workflow and some of the tools that it has available, including just diving into MCP. And there's a lot more that you can do with Zed that I haven't even touched upon, even like the ability to add people to collaborate with your project very quickly, just to show you that in here at the bottom here, you can add people to work on your project with you. You can even just like check this into GitHub and commit code. There's a lot that it can do. So, but this was just like a quick peek at what the Zed code editor can do. I've been using it for a week. I kind of like what it's doing. So hopefully you can give it a shot as well. And let's see what you do building apps using Zed code editor. Hope you enjoyed this episode and hope to see you again in another one where we explore some of the AI tools that we've been using. God bless. Bye.